Welcome everyone, and looks like we have a rather small and cozy crowd today. And this is already our 8th session of Learn Flutter Together. And again, we have it on every Monday since October, and until now it's towards the end. We only have a few chapters to go. And we are very happy today to have Sue, who will present a topic on state management today. But just before we start, I would like to mention the code of conduct for our events, because we want to provide a positive experience for everyone. So if there is any kind of discrimination, we will not tolerate them. And then if you found any of the, if you witness any discrimination, just feel free to report to us. We will investigate and take it very seriously. So yeah, if you are interested to follow us and check out our future events, you can like us on the Facebook page, and we are also on Twitter. Also, at the end of every session, we will try to upload the recording of each session to the YouTube channel. So feel free to check them out. And then for today, we have the state management. And next week, we are still looking for a volunteer to discuss on the topic of deployment. And finally, our last session will be concluded with the Firebase. So if you are interested to volunteer, please let us know. You don't have to be an expert. Once you have given a try on the material, then you can try to present it, because that's usually how we learn, right? So if you're interested, just reach out to us after the session today. So actually, this is not updated. We will do a refresh on the previous chapter. That is on chapter 14. And then for today, we will discuss on chapter 12 and 13, and then we will conclude it. So without further ado, I will pass the stage to Sue.
All right, thanks. See my screen, right? So, yep. So about me, I've been in IT industry nearly 20 years, getting old. All right, so been doing a lot of different kinds of technology, from Oracle, e-business suite, PLSQL, .NET, Java, and recently I've been doing Flutter, React Native. So it's a full stack developer basically. So my full time, I don't really do much coding. I'm actually not allowed to do coding because it's more on management. So I think you guys, if you're interested on me, you can ping me anytime on any questions in IT industry, looking for a job, what are your career path, anything on IT, you can actually ping me. Yeah, no worries. I will try my best to answer you. So if you have no questions, then we will start on the chapter 12. So chapter 12, we're going to use a copper library. So this library is also a networking. So we're going to replace the HTTP package. Well, I didn't use a chopper package because HTTP is enough for me. Right. So I will assume you guys already clone the code out. Okay, and make sure you run it. Okay, make sure you run it. Make sure that the code that you clone is workable before you start editing. Hold on, can't see. Just open the chat. Yep. All right, so I assume you guys already put in your API key and also API ID. Okay, you should have something on this. Okay. All right, so we can start. I'm not going to read most of the statements. You guys can actually go through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the HTTP package. Okay. Let's do a prompt up again. Chopper generator. So this actually helps to generate the codes. So we put it into the development dependency because we don't need to deploy this into the production. So just put it on the dev dependency. So handling recipe result. Go to the network model, create a new file. Let's see. So we have created an abstract class, success, and error. All right. So recipe service. So paste your API. Do you guys need me to paste in the chat room?
No, we're good.
You're good? Okay.
No, because I think the API key, they should get it on their own, right?
Oh, I'm finding from the internet.
You can do that.
Yeah, I find the link. I find in the GitHub someone already shared it out in the Git.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be. It's not
Yeah,
supposed
so-
to be public. But
anyway,
anyway.
it's a one-time use, right? It's a one-time
Okay.
use. Anyway, it's a free service. So I think they don't mind to share. Okay. So next, we paste add chopper API here. Recipe service chopper API. So basically, this is actually to replace the HTTP calling methods into the chopper's ways of calling. So we're going to replace this. Okay. We're going to replace. Okay, there was some error expecting. Doesn't matter. We can just leave it, fix it later. So you can actually read from here what it's trying to do. Okay. So after that, we need to create a model. This model is something like a master util, then you import all the library here. So on the others class, when you just need to call this converter, model converter. So next. So you can see model converter, request, convert, request passing in, passing the request, contain type, key, JSON header. Then we have encoding JSON, decoding JSON, and then we convert the response. I'm sure everyone is familiar with JSON. So on the encoding, the request come in, set out the header. So it's checking whether the content type not equals to num and content type contains some JSON header, request copy. So it's actually copying the request and then it convert into the encode into the JSON body, and then it responds back. Okay, it returns. Okay, same to decode JSON. So once the response is back from the API call, if you call the decode JSON, getting the response, same thing, you're checking on the header. Okay, and then you do a map. Checking on the status, just want to double check on the HTTP status, which is not now, means you are actually calling the API correctly. Okay, then you map to the recipe query. So map into the success body, else it map into the error body. Using interceptor, automatically include your ID and key. Not sure how many of you actually did interceptor before. I actually did a lot. I did a lot on interceptor is because I want to handle the error code, for example, like gateway timeout, 404, because I want to make sure that when I calling the server, I get the correct response code. So I always did an interceptor to handle some of the responses on the server side. And also for you, if you want to time out the server, because sometimes server maybe hang, maybe high loaded, it didn't respond you in the standard timeout within 30 seconds. So you want to do an interceptor. To control that all timeout, usually we put in the interceptor. So we don't need to write into every single API. Okay. And also maybe, well, this sample actually don't have any token. So in the token also we handle the, so for in the interceptor also we handle the token. Okay. So recipe service. So we do a parade. So parade. Calling the chopper client, set URL, interceptor, adding query, doing logging, converting the model, then JSON converter. So, and the service, which service you are calling. and then you respond into the file. So we need to import simple chopper. So he said ignore the root freezer, they will disappear after you generate the file. All right, so now we're going to generate a file. Copy this to your terminal. Update your Flutter get pom get so that you get the library.
Also, I want to ask, do you usually use this library chopper or you use some other libraries?
Now I just use HTTP because the rest of
Oh.
the thing I can just handle on the interceptor. I actually write my own interceptor.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's more easy because if you have too much library, then when you move to project to another project and Flutter always get upgrade, you don't know whether this chopper will upgrade. Because when the Flutter version and the Dart version, okay, the Dart version is here. Again, these are the Dart version. Sometimes the library that you use it didn't upgrade into the advanced. So for example, last time we are using Flutter 1.2, 1.4, and now it's 2.5 and 2.3 above is all now pointer. So most of the library actually can't support now pointer, now safety, they call it now safety. So you will have a lot of issue when you have too many libraries. So I will always use the basic one. Yeah, and use the basic and write your own codes when you need. So from the following project, you can just copy the previous project, some of the general things, and then you can just reuse it. So it'll be much easier. Yeah, just reload. Getting some errors.
I think, is it because you didn't import the package that contains the annotation?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. I forgot to remove this. Okay. So you got a conflict. It doesn't know which response you actually wanted because before that, you're actually reading from the HTTP response.
Yeah. But also, I think you need to put the part statement, right? If not, then it doesn't generate. Yeah, like here, it says you need to include the.
Yes. Sequence. Okay, so you created this file. Well, if you look at this file, is doing quite a simple thing. Okay, just getting the URL means you are passing your query in integer from to, and then it help you to form the parameters query from to, and then you call the base URL parameters. So it's not very difficult to write your own self. I mean, if you continue with the HTTP package, it's not very difficult things. And yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not helping me generate a lot of codes. But it's always nice to see how's others library doing. Okay. Okay, so now we're putting a login to the main. Set up login. Well, of course, the best way you don't do it in the main. You can do your logging into the interceptor, so that you know where you want to, where you've been logging all the HTTP call. I mean, usually I would do in the interceptor. It's either you do it into the service or you do it into the scepter. Because when the project grows big, it's very kind of hard to troubleshoot where the programmer did the logging. So another way you need to troubleshoot, probably you need to search, fast search or something like that. I think I did. Okay, sorry. I think I copied wrong. Should be copied here. So these are calling the features. Try not to put too many things on the main, because I have a project that actually the main class has been grown up to 1000 to 2009. It's very tedious when it comes for troubleshooting. But this is just a tutorial, so it's all right. So we add a converter here because we are changing on the response. I mean, the way how we call the API. So we need to convert it, include the chopper. Yeah, but it's already there. Delete. So delete that. Okay, so we need to change this. Change with the new one. a snapshot. Change a snapshot. Okay, and you are done. All right. Some errors.
I didn't know it has to build again, so it's very slow.
Yeah, because I turn it off. Maybe while waiting. Okay, the next chapter is actually a state management. I'm sure you guys pretty familiar with state management. Okay. But in Flutter actually have a lot, okay, a lot. There are a lot of common questions that people ask, which are the best state management. You go to this link, just copy here. Okay, so the most popular package for state management in Flutter 2021. So these are pretty latest articles that I see actually pretty good with what they've been putting in. You got get X, aka gets. So they even put how many likes, means how many people actually like this state management. So they have some short descriptions on this state management. And then you got providers. Okay, then you have block, got Prever Pop, got GetDict, MobiX. So if you are the beginner, I will advise you to use provider and GetDict because they are more easy and they can just dip. I mean they can dip wherever is needed. And it's very easy. Okay. But if you check on the internet, somebody will say block is the best. You can see they have about nearly 8,000 stars and provider only have 4,000 stars. So block actually do have more stars in terms in the GitHub. But block, I would say, is quite complex and a lot of codes. So if your application is not a very complex apps, I don't think you need a block. Because block actually create a lot of DAX file and a lot of you need to have a very good structure in your project. Otherwise, you will lose in somewhere when you coding in block. You will lose in somewhere. So if you are a beginner, I will advise you to use provider or get it. Okay. So I think our code is ready.
But now for your work project, which state management library do you use?
I'm using provider because it's nice and simple and doesn't have a lot of codes. Yeah.
Okay. So it's your personal favorite?
Yeah, it's my personal favorite. Yeah, because I really don't like to read a lot of codes. I mean, if you're using provider is already giving you a same result, why not, right? But if your UI is a bit complex, okay, yeah, sometimes this URL has this issue, not sure why. So I think it's missing. Alright, you don't need this search because you already set here. You already set the up here. Yep. So Chopper did exactly the same thing as HTTP. So not much different, I see. Well, if you ask me, I think HTTP package is just nice. Yeah. I'm not too sure why the author actually recommend this. Maybe they want to help the beginner to actually to come up this, because I see a lot of junior programmer, they actually doesn't know how to do a util or a common functions or things like that. They will just copy paste on the same whenever they call the API. They are not, most of the junior programmer, they are not very good in using a function, so you will end up have a lot of codes. So okay, so I think we end on chapter 12. Okay, so just now we're talking about block. What do you mean very complex UI? Is this a complex? I think definitely no, it's just a display. So what about this? This is also not a very complex UI. You can see it's just a search and a listing. Complex UIs means if you have a field, means you got a lot of text box, like maybe you want the user to fill in the user detail, and then they go to next, and then maybe it's a delivery app, and the next is fill out the address, then order items, calorie, add-ons, then maybe you have membership price. When you have few screens, and then you have some dependency when you change on the UI, means there's some validation that required, means maybe on the screen number 5, when the user tick yes, they need to go back to the first screen and make sure the field is filled in. If you have that kind of project, then probably you will need a block. You will need a block to handle that kind of complex flow and UI. Otherwise, if apps like this just search, display, and then bookmark, so this is quite a very simple app, so you don't need block. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to know more about what is state management, I mean, you don't need to use blog as your state management. There's a link here, YouTube. About half an hour, but I mean, you don't need to go through. Sorry, you don't need to go through the whole half an hour. Probably the key point is only on. It's only on. Yeah, it's only on the top. I mean, the first 10 minutes. Yeah, I'll send the link to your friends. So when you try to explain, say, into business owner or product owner or project manager, just tell them it's just like a database. Okay, just tell them it's like a database, but it's storing in the memory. So whenever the data being changed, the mobile side we get it from the data. So state management is actually happening in the memory. So state management need to be well designed and not too much of code, because it's very hard to troubleshoot. Because when you have some performance issue, it's very hard to troubleshoot. Yeah, just tell them it's just a caching or storage, temporary storage in the mobile. This is what state management is. And when we talk about mobile, they always come up with state management, because we want the mobile to be loaded fast and doesn't have the network lacking. Even the network is not stable, because we don't know when the user interact with the apps. You might be playing the phone on the lift, in the toilet, in the parking. So we need the state management to capture some of the data. So whenever the user is in the offline environment, it can still display. So your apps will crash, right? Your app will crash, because when you call the API, the data is kept in the state, and state is using our mobile memory. Okay, as long as the user doesn't clear cache, then it will stay there. Okay. So is state management important? I think yes. Unless your app you are building in a 5G environment, complete 5G environment, then you don't need state. But I don't think so. So it's telling you it's mostly on the widgets. Widget says report, local storage, network data. So if you need to know better, you can always read through. So for the provider, we have the change notifier. So this one is actually helping us when to update into the memory, when to take out, which screen is actually needed. So you have a notifier. So the consumer who is consuming, okay. Then got future provider, you got multi-provider. Multi-provider is when you have maybe you are doing a delivery app. You want to have one provider for profile information, profile details. Then you want to have another provider for the profile favorites, favorite restaurant, favorite meal. So it's just think it like a database. So you have two tables. One is keeping the profile information, another one is keeping the user favorites. So that's why you have few providers. And maybe another one is for the user payment methods, credit card details. Okay. All right. So we're going to use this tool library, copy. So in the UI model, so create a data. What's this? Create a recipe class. Create a model. Convert data into model to displays. Recipe model. Create a repository. Repository means you are doing all the get, insert, delete, initialize. So this is pretty standard. We usually call this class repository. Let's see, this copy. And the memory repository. Okay. And So you can see there's a lot of overrides because it's on the repository and also the change notify. So you can see the change notify. So this is common. But the best part of Flutter is you can always go into the library and look at the codes. So you will actually know what's happening behind the scene. Okay, so we're done. So we go to the main and import our repository and also the provider package. Okay, so you can see. So the previously we just do a build material app, then debug team main screen. So what it added is actually adding the change notify provider. So it means when the app is start, the listener is opening. So if it actually waiting, are you going to call from the state? Are you going to load data from the state? Or you want to add more things in the state? So this is always on the build. You're always on the main class. Because it starts when the app loaded, launch. Okay, so the app starting with the change notifier, then we need to add into our recipe. Replace the construct. So what is adding is the recipe. So we're adding a recipe. Then we call a provider. So on the build. Then we call the provider. So we are telling the program, hey, this recipe detail need a provider. So there's something need to be loaded from the repository. So it's checking any existing. Is it any existing data there? That's why it's putting this. Or it's just a fresh app that haven't called any API yet. Change this. So we don't need to hard code the image. So we don't hard code the label. Then we replace the category. All right. Then bookmark. We are calling the repository to insert the recipe when the user press. So once the user press, we are inserting the recipe into the repository. So we are passing the recipe into the state management. All right. We are done for the bookmark. We can test it out.
So we
All right,
cannot
yeah.
hear.
You cannot hear?
We cannot hear the
Oh, okay.
audio
I
from
thought
the
you.
video.
I thought you guys can hear. They got subtitle. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So basically, they are explaining. Okay, what is state manager? So it's either you want to change. It's either you want to change on the very good diagram. Okay, it's either you want to change on the business logic, the UI state, or the network state. So for a simple app like this, usually we just want to handle the network side, means the API. And of course, they have inherit to the UI state. So mostly we are focused on this. So if you have a business logic, like I say, if you have a very kind of complex flow and UI, you need some business logic to change the state, and then maybe when the API returns, you have some logic to do before you display. Yeah, then you can use block. Okay, that's why I see the block UI, Cupid, and data. So these are the network side. So this is the Cupid. So it's a function. So it's like a business logic. So it's a business logic component design patterns. All right. So if you have quite a complex one, then you can add it. But can you have two-step management in your project? Yes, you can. You can have some block and you can have provider. But people don't do that because it can be very confusing. But some of the state, maybe you need two, maybe you need a provider and you need a get it. Or maybe you want to get it and you need a block. So some of the state you can, some of the apps, maybe you need two different kind of state management. It is possible.
And actually, for your info, like Block also uses a provider to pass down the block, the qubit, and the repository to the widget tree. So of course you can combine both, but personally I use Block, and since it also depends on provider, then I can also use that.
So you're having two, yeah, okay. Yeah, because I saw some of the projects that have two also. But as I know, the package of the block, you're actually using a provider inside. Because I opened source code in the block before.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So if you think you are good enough, you can always come up your own state management. You can build your own state, no issue. Yeah. So what we did, okay, the retrieving. Mistake here.
Is the detail page rendering in your build recipe card?
Oh.
I think you need to check the build recipe card method in the, is it the recipe list file?
Yeah, I think maybe
The build recipe card method. You scroll down a bit, I think. The highlighted part. Build recipe card. Then return.
oh, okay. I think I deleted the on tab.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Bookmark.
Okay.
So you guys can actually test it offline. Means you turn off the internet and see what happens to the app. Okay, I always do that. All right. So now we go into the bookmark screen. Update recipe declaration. To recipe.
Did you remove the init state?
Oh no. But you asked to remove. Oh.
Yeah.
Consume. Close the brackets.
I think it's the braces and then a bracket.
Braces and brackets. Is it? No.
Yeah. Then put the semicolon, should be okay.
Okay, then add recipe definition.
That is the second on tab.
Oh, okay. Shopping list. Tick mark. Mark. Okay, we go tick. Delete. Recipe ID now. Okay. Starting.
Somehow the ID is now.
No. Just complete. Okay.
But in the log, do you see any ID in the recipe object in the console? Macam don't have.
Oh yeah. Actually, I didn't try to this point. I didn't try the tutorial up to this point. So I'm not very sure whether this code is really working or not.
Yeah, because can see from the console, right? Because you have the logging on.
The screen object. Now, yeah, it's now.
In the model file, it doesn't have the ID.
It's not mandatory. It's the app. Okay, never mind. Otherwise, going to spend whole night. That later, okay. Okay, it's for the mod service. Mod recipe. Okay, we can stop here. This is shopping list. This is the shopping list, is it? Grocery. All right. Okay. Okay, actually what I wanted to show you guys is when you actually close the app. Close it. Relaunch it.
Oh, have to run again.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I forgot it's not APK.
So I think the bookmarks will not stay, right? If the user close the app and then they open again, then it's fresh state.
If
So,
because we are using the tools to build, so it's not an APK. But if you are using an APK, means you are actually installed in the mobile, and then when you restart it, the bookmark will be still there, because the state will actually cache it in the memory.
yeah, but once you kill the app, then the memory also will be cleared.
Yeah, okay. You mean the user closed the app? Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
You will close. Yeah, so usually what we do is we actually put in the local storage. The state we put in the local storage, so we save it.
Mhm.
Some of the information like user tokens, you don't want the user every time log in, so we put in the local storage. Something very strange. Oh, yeah, it's all gone. I did it. I think the tutorial itself has some bug. Shopping. What was the purpose of this? Not sure. Okay. I think that's all.
Yeah, just to add on, the last part is on using a mock service. So because the API that we use here is rate limited. So sometimes for rate limited API, it's not very friendly when you want to do development. So here they introduce a new way, an alternative way if you want to like debug your UI and not hitting the rate limit error, then you can use the mock service. Means it's fake data.
Okay. Usually I would just do a JSON file and pull it from the file. Because there's quite a lot of code to write if you want to do a mock service. Yeah, so doing a JSON response and you put on your asset and then you, like this, right? Yeah, I think, they have SOP 1 and 2.
And inside here got ID or not?
ID, no lah, I think got ID. No lah. No ID.
Scroll down a bit. See whether got
ID here.
not.
So all the recipe. No lah.
No, search for ID. ID.
Oh, you mean the recipe ID?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they pass the ID usually. I
No.
think maybe you need to define your own ID. The recipe, when you add, maybe you need to append your own ID.
Oh,
Yeah,
but
so I think
that's a bit weird, no?
oh, it's a bug. Yeah, no ID.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
I can share like how I normally work with mock API, because sometimes when we develop front end, you don't want to wait until back end has finished development, then only you start the front end. Sometimes
true.
you just want to debug your UI first, then you can
Yes.
create also like the mock service.
Yeah, true. Okay.
Then when backend has ready, then you just replace the mock service code with the real one. Then everything should work.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because when you wait for the back end to be ready, then probably in UAT already.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bugs will continue until SIT stage.
Okay. Is there any more question from the rest? Abida, Sweet Thing.
We're sleeping already.
Is everyone doing okay? Okay, if there's no question, is there anything else you want to add, Sue? No, nothing.
Anything to add? No. I mean, if you hit a root blocker, means something you don't know how to do, you don't know how to continue, always search at the internet and YouTube. This is how I started my first project in Flutter, okay, with no experience. I mean, of course, it started with a screen, so you need to know which screen you want to start first. And then usually they will start from the login. So go to the GitHub, Git code, and see which are the good login project that you can just clone, you know, then you can follow the project structure. I mean, you need to pick a good one, then you start develop from there. You don't need to, I mean, you don't really need to spend a few months to study before you say, I know Flutter, I can develop Flutter. You can just start from nothing and then you start learning while you're doing. This is how I did. Yeah. Yeah, copy and edit. Yeah, yes. Yeah. Then slowly you know which are the sample project which is good and no good. Yeah.
Yeah, so the problem with finding resources online is there are a mix of good and bad ones.
Yeah,
and maybe I can recommend one that I find is pretty good. Like this GitHub, it contains all the Flutter architecture samples from for different state management libraries. So let's say if you're using blog, there are also some blog example, like provider also got MobX. So and this one I can trust him for providing good example because this is the developer that I follow. So yeah, if you hit a roadblock or you need more good examples, then you can check out the link that I posted.
Yeah. So yeah, this is how you started the development of Flutter career. Yeah. So it will always good to just, you know, go to Facebook and ask around, see anyone need Flutter developers and then you say you are free, you can do it. And people ask you how many experience, then you don't need to tell them you have how many years experience in Flutter. Anyway, Flutter is quite new. Okay, you don't tell people you have 4 years experience, because Flutter only I think they're not even 4 years. I think still going to be 4 years. Yeah, so a lot of people say they have 5 years experience in Flutter, so you know this is all content. Yeah. So it will be very motivate for you to learn Flutter when somebody is paying you for the job. Yeah. Yeah. So lower down the rate at the beginning and start doing it. Yeah. And then roll out. It will be best. It will be best thing to roll out your project. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's all of 10 o'clock already.
Yeah. All right. So once again, thanks. Thank you, Sue, for sharing, and then also for sitting, and Abida, who always attend our sessions. Thank you so much. And then so we have 2 more sessions left. So 2 more Mondays. And next week we will be covering on deployment. So if there is no one else who volunteer, then I will be sharing on that topic. And yes, have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, hope to see few more people joining.